in 3, 2, 1, and welcome everyone. What the muckety muck is going on with you
Shut up.
guys?
Shut up. You can't. Don't play to them. Don't encourage their little duck propaganda.
As you can see, we already
You.
started off this episode with some bad blood between me and Drew. But will that continue on when we're talking about the new update in Warframe? See? I was doing something there. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to FrameCast 19. After 2 weeks of having guests on, finally we have the podcast to just the two of us. How does it feel?
Organic.
It does.
Yeah.
So yeah, update from Warframe coming out this week, or came out last week,
Yeah.
called The Old Blood. I've gone over it a little bit. There's a video out. We actually have something really cool coming out together where we are talking both about like how to get the Kuva Liches. But anyway, before we get started with all of that, before we're diving into every single little detail, today we wanted to go over basically, well, what do we think of this piece of content, especially since I think we both liked it, didn't we?
Yep.
Yeah. We both liked it, even though we get the feeling that there has been a lot of people that are disliking it. And that's interesting. And overall, I think this is an interesting update where we can dive into. So, general thoughts, let's start off with that. In one sentence, what do you think of the Old Blood?
I think that the Old Blood is one way of tackling the challenge that everyone is craving for Warframe.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, though there are there are a few rough edges, I think it's done a very good job.
Mm-hmm. I think it is a motley of content. I still don't know what the word motley means, but anyway, it's a nice chunk of content in a very I'm gonna say progressive content, which lacks finish but contains depth. So I think that the integration was non-existent, which made probably some of the bad experiences to people when they couldn't find anything. But I have to say that this has been for the first time since like a year or so since Fortuna that I'm actually like playing Warframe even offline to work on my Kuva Liches and playing hours together for videos and stuff like that. So
Just to clarify, when you say offline, you mean just not streamed? Yes?
yeah, offline means like not. I'm not playing Warframe on a local client. We don't have that, as far as we can disclose. No, we do not have that at all.
So I think I completely agree with you that the implementation, the integration, the intuitive nature of how to actually do the Kuva Liches has been very rough. I remember seeing your video that came out. Was it yesterday or the day before?
It was yesterday.
Yeah, and I watched it and I was just like, yep, this is so true. You have no idea how to trigger this thing. And it gives me the impression that DE intended for Kuva Liches to be stumbled upon.
Mm-hmm.
But when it is a driving force of content for your veteran players, for your players that are like starving for something to do, not providing the information on how to actually find these things, I can appreciate is very frustrating.
So you're saying that it might have been content which was intended to be stumbled upon. But how about the cinematic, which was beautifully made and took me actually by surprise that it was there? That seems to be quite alluding at the start, even before you find them, like, hey, there's something here, and not necessarily something you stumble upon.
I want to know, for players that haven't done the War Within. I was about to say the new war. No one's done the new war yet. The players that haven't done the War Within, when they complete the War Within, will they see that Kuva Lich cinematic,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or will they only see it like the day after they've completed the War Within? When will they see it? I'm really interested to know if they'll see it at all. Was that just for the players that were already ready to go?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows, right?
I don't know. I do want to dive into some of the really good things which I like before we can continue on like the path of the implementation. I think there are some really good points to be made there. But before we do that, I do think that we both like this thing, and there's a lot of people that don't like this thing. So let's start off with the things that we do like. Because when we got this update on first day night, we actually had our FrameCast with Sandy on Tuesday, so 2 days before. And I remember one of the things that we brought up during that framecast, which was something which was quite revolutionary for me because I kind of knew it, but I really knew it before, was that the desire for difficulty wasn't necessarily the desire for real, true, difficult content, but it was more so you want something which is challenging in the sense of you don't know what this is, but you know that you could know what it is, and there's a large amount of content behind that because Warframe is more of a content driven game than a difficulty driven game. And basically we were kind of off the mindset that we're probably not going to see this anymore because Warframe can't produce that much content because it's really hard for like end game players to not like exploit it right from the start and figure out exactly how it works. However, I think that this update 2 days later kind of did it. We kind of ended up with the system where you have so many new ways of going about like getting this thing. It's not necessarily a focus system to that extent, but it's a pretty like big system where there's a lot of like time and refinement and knowledge skills like hidden in there which you can uncover, and I really like that.
I think one of the more important knowledge gaps to fill in is the perception of challenge, right?
Mm,
So a lot of people I have seen complain that this content isn't challenging, it's just RNG, it's just full of RNG. But here's the big thing. RNG does have a component to challenge, right?
mm,
So you can either go to my example is you can either go to university and study for years, rack up a huge debt, go get hopefully get your qualification. You're not guaranteed it. You have to actually apply yourself. Then you go to get a job, you get a nice job, and then you can start earning lots of money. Or you can just spend money on the lottery in the vain hope that you'll get lucky and get win the lottery and then
mm,
have all the money in the world, right? And pretend to be Scrooge McDuck.
mm,
But the problem is you can't easily simulate that working towards something. I like the fact that they actually did it with the murmurs, right? You have to work towards getting the hint at which Parazon Requiem relic you need to actually
mm,
kill the Kuva Lich. But at the same time, you still have to farm the actual mods. To me, this is all fine. If you
mm,
didn't actually have to work towards this stuff, then what? Do you just want the content now? Right? No, we want something to do.
mm. I fully agree. Whenever I saw people complaining about the RNG-ness of this new update, um, let me explain what their main criticism is. Is mainly that in order to get to your Kuva Lich, you need to stumble upon a Kuva larfling at a random Grenier mission. Then you get your Kuva Lich, and then you need to go ahead and do Kuva floods, which spawn every hour, or Kuva other Kuva missions, the lower ones, the Kuva I forget
Siphons.
siphons or the Kuva siphons, where you have a 1 out of 3 chance to get a 30% chance.
It's not a 1 in 3. It's a 30%.
30% chance.
That's
It's
it's less
about
than 1
1
in
in
3.
3, but about
Yeah, but it's less than.
30%. Okay, 30% chance of getting one. So then you can get a relic, and then from that relic you can run these relics, and then from these relics you can get mods that if you kill the thralls and you kill a great number of them, you can get all the indications of which mods you need to put on your Parasol thing in order to kill the Kuva Lich. But in order to kill it, you must make sure that you have the right combination, which you're going to have to try over and over again. If you fail, you get an indication of what was wrong, but you're going to have to start getting it angry again. So there is a lot of steps involved in it. And I can very well understand, because I was sitting there with my playthrough, like the video that I posted this Monday, and I was really afraid that it was going to fail really badly, because I always like to bring you along for an adventure and bring that off to it close. And most of the time, Warframe updates are about an hour to 2 hours of recording, and I was 1 hour and 30 minutes in. I didn't even have my Kuva Lich yet. And after days of playing and recording, like, we're hours further and I still haven't killed the first Kuva Lich. So it is way different than a standard story. And in that sense you can be like, well, it's there's a lot going on there. But I see it more as a sort of focus system, way tuned down. It's not like it doesn't have the weight of a focus system. But if this came with like the sacrifice as a build out for a cinematic quest, I would have been absolutely really satisfied with that. As like, wow, we're exploring this new system, and now all of a sudden we just get it in a mainline update. So yeah, I can really appreciate it.
As can I. So I would like to ask a poll. I don't know if you saw my message. Basically, let's ask the audience whether or not they actually like the Old Blood update. Because I think that's one thing that we can't easily identify without really hearing from the people.
So what do you like about it?
About the update?
Yeah, if you have to pick something in particular.
I think it's the puzzle. It's the puzzle of working out what the combination is, because you actually have to try to work it out. And yes, this is where the game, I think, falls over. It punishes you for trying. It shouldn't punish you as brutally as it does.
Would you mind explaining that, in which sense it punishes you?
So one thing I played Shadow of Mordor, which was the first game that the whole Kingpin system or Kuva Lich system is based off of, right? And one of the things that really frustrated me about Shadows of Mordor is the fact that you go fight a named character, it would kill you, and then it would get stronger. I'm like, well, if it's killing me, how can I get better to actually kill it? Right?
Yeah.
And I found it frustrating. Microphone. I found it frustrating where it could just dominate. So, like, if I wasn't skilled enough, if I wasn't good enough, then I would lose to so many enemies, and it would be too frustrating. The thing I liked about what was proposed by DE was the fact that if you try to kill a Lich, but you did it wrong, it would come back stronger, right? However, they haven't gone down that route. If you try to kill a Lich and you do it wrong, it kills you. That's the thing that a lot of people, that's like the only consistent complaint I've truly heard. People don't like it.
I can get behind that. Also, we see that everyone seems to like here the update, which is nice. That's one of the things where I can really appreciate that point of view, because we went through quite a lot of hours trying to go through the entire process of farming a Kuva Lich, getting a Kuva Lich and getting that kill in. And you might say on initial review that it's a lot of work because, hey, we need to farm all these relics, we need to farm all these murmurs, we need to farm all these mods. But in reality, the more you do, the easier it will get. So I'm not too worried about that because it's just the initial grind to get all the new resources. I'm fine with that. But then today I finally got to killing my first, or attempting my first kill upon a Kuva Lich. And after, this is a decent amount of hours of work of getting all the Requiem mods, all the murmurs, all the throws, figuring out how the entire thing works. You get to have your first attempt to your Lich. Your Lich spawns for the first time. You're hell yeah. You're running towards it. You're taking it down. You press your X, stab it, and it's wrong. One thing was wrong. The first thing is wrong. You don't know anything else. And then, boom, it kills you. And then it goes up a rank. And then it's all fine again. And then you gotta, do all these missions to make it angry again to go for another attempt. And at that point, it's all right, well, this is a way longer term thing than me trying to, kill it. Even though every time I started the game, it's, trying to taunt me into, oh, we're gonna have a battle soon. It's not really. Because now I gotta, make it angry again. And that will take a while. So the kind of if you at the end of the thing fail to get the randomized order perfect, which is it's a slim chance that you get that perfect. It's not really a skill based thing. It's more luck if you get it right on your first try. Then you're kind of punished for trying. Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that.
I definitely don't think it's the end of the world.
No, it's not.
But I do think that it would be nice that on occasion you could attempt to kill it, you fail to kill it, and then your Lich does a Skeletor laugh. And it's when you kill it, and because it's going to come back, right?
Yeah. Well, so I don't have a problem with you dying using a revive, because it's one revive out of 4 that you have, or 6 if you have arcanes until you do end the mission. I more have a bit of an issue with that. If you attempt something if you attempt it for the very first time, you gotta make it all the way furious again, and that's gonna take a while. And then hope that it spawns. So far I haven't gone through that entire progress, so I'm not too familiar with it. But today I finally got to doing the first attempt at the Kuva Lich after the hours we spend on getting the right mods and getting the right relics. And then it's you stab it, it's okay, it's wrong. Oh, now we got to start all over again with that Lich getting it all angry, and then hopefully that it will come after me. I don't mind dying because we get a bunch of revives. I don't think that's necessarily the end of the world.
Fair.
So yeah.
Right. Where are we now?
Anyway, overall, I think that those are some of the main things that we like. I'm kind of disappointed that we both like it, in the sense of it's great that we both like it, but so we can't really have a back and forth between the things that I like and that you don't like, and you don't like and I like. It seems
is a simple step forward, right? What is one thing that you would like to have in addition or changed?
I would have loved, aside from, I would have loved decent integration. And let me explain what I mean with that. I think that Warframe has really struggled over the last couple of years to integrate things well into the game. They always have great updates in the sense of Plains of Eidolon, Fortuna, this thing, Jupiter. They make great content. It's fine. It looks good. And for a free-to-play game, fuck yeah. Please, sign me up. I mean, I've been signed up for 6 years, so I've already done that. But sign me up again. Maybe I've done that too. Anyway, that aside, I think that if we look at a system like this, even though it has some minor flaws, overall I think that the content itself is pretty decent. And the cinematic we got was amazing. But after that, you have no clue as to what to do. There's no hints being given. There's nothing tactile or anything, or no pop-ups in the UI saying, hey, try going to this mission, or try going here, or try figuring this out. Nothing. And that was not only for the Kuva Liches, that was also for the Parason. I still have no idea what the Parason even is. Like, I'm kind of figuring it out, like implying from what it does, but it's like, why is there no introduction to it? Why did we not acquire it? Like, the way that I would have done it, if you already had that cinematic, have orders tell you like, go to Setna and do a mission because we've heard some weird things about the Green. Check it out, and you check it out, and then it's like, oh my god, you stumble upon your Larfling, and they drop some blueprint. Built this. Oh, it's a Parason. It's like a thing you can add to your Warframe, and then stick it into thingy things, and then like you can juice up your ciphers and something. And it's like they did the same thing with the Plains of Eidolon, and people always say like, oh well, you can watch a dev stream and know about it, or it's supposed to be in the game, so it's always been there. And I think that these two arguments can hold up, but I think that they're bullshit. Because first of all, if you're playing a wide variety of games, which generally you're playing multiple games at the same time, you pick up a bit of Warframe, you play some Call of Duty, you maybe play some Fortnite, maybe dive into Minecraft, or whatever you're doing, you can't expect the general player base to keep up with every single dev stream and every single thing in order for them to have a clue as to what's going on. So I don't think that the dev stream should be the information source. But secondly, why do we need to have this weird thing where it's like, oh, everything that comes in the game has always been in there, but it doesn't need an introduction? It's like, no, 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 no. Like, when we got the second dream, we all of a sudden got things that weren't in the game before. And instead of Warframe being like, oh, they've always been in the game, they made it a good quest. And people loved it or hated it, but like it was a really good way of introducing something which wasn't there before and making it in the game and giving it a reason as to why it was there. The Plains had a really bad introduction, but just it showed up. And the Parason again, it just shows up. And it's like, if things can just show up out of the blue, it really breaks hard on immersion. So yeah, my thing would definitely have been, do some decent integration, please. How about
I
you?
can appreciate that. I'm trying to think. I think realistically, the thing that I really want to see improved is a reason for you to convert the Kuva Liches, because you convert it and then what? It just on occasion turns up during a mission. Like, oh, I'm here to help you. Why can't it be that? So when I don't understand why it can't have this, but when you are fighting the Lich, it gains territory, right? So by the time I finished my Lich, it had Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Phobos. There was a sixth one. Maybe it had Lua as well. I'm not entirely sure. But it had 6 planets, right? And I was losing stuff every single time I was fighting on those planets. But the big thing is that when you actually fight on those planets, you can take the territory back from the Kuva Lich. So why not spin the system 180 degrees on its head? When you've captured the Lich, change all of those red areas to say blue or gold or green or whatever color, right? And then you get a buff to your resources, to your drops, until you normalize that location. Yeah. Maybe you could put like a time limit that you have to do it within the first 48 hours, otherwise it just wipes. Or you have to do it before you get your next Lich, otherwise it just wipes. All right.
I can see that. I haven't gotten to that point yet to converting your Kuva Lich because I've only made one attempt so far. So allow me to inquire a little bit. So when you take down your Kuva Lich, it becomes friendly to you, right?
No. You have a choice. So when you get to that point, you can
Mm-hmm.
either choose to kill the Lich
Mm-hmm.
or you can convert the Lich. If you kill the Lich, then all its territories are wiped out and you get the Kuva weapon.
And when
Right?
you convert it,
You also get all your resources back when you kill it. When you convert it, you don't get the weapon.
Mm-hmm.
It will on occasion turn up during a mission, and I assume you get your resources. I'll have to defer to our lovely audience to whether or not you do, because I've not tried it.
All right. So for me, I feel that I don't know how the story goes or how it's necessarily portrayed, but if you think about the narrative behind it, if a Kuva Lich is like this like Grenier that's being given a chance to die or grow into a powerful monster that goes after like a single Tenno, then once it goes after it, it will be backed by the Grenier. So like they will make sure that they're supporting it. The moment that's converted by you, it doesn't have the support by the Grenier anymore. So can it then still control regions? Maybe, most likely, I would think not so. And I feel that with the buffs, with the debuffs that we're getting in resources, like a buff in the other direction would not hurt because it's like only like 1 or 2 resources. It's not that much that you're losing, and it would be nice to go the other way around. Yeah, something that could happen. I don't think I'd be too stoked to get 2 extra endo, but then again, maybe for someone else that would be a great thing. And yeah, it being a specter, if it's a specter, it's just Warframe is really bad with friendly specters. They're always shit. Umbra, not good.
Yeah, I mean, so I think changing up how the converting of a lich works
Mm-hmm.
is certainly a good step forward,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think it's the only thing to change. I think we both agree changing the deaths
Mm-hmm.
so that you don't die so brutally at just a guess. But I think all in all, we're happy with this patch. We're certainly happy that there is plenty of content to do. I know that there are some people that have burnt through this system like there's no tomorrow. But considering someone that doesn't have all the time in the world, I started Friday and I've only killed 1 lich. I'm fine. I'm happy. I can keep going.
I mean, I've spent more time on Warframe than I have done on like the past month, like the entire month of September. I've done that in an entire week, and I still haven't killed a lich. And I'm like, man, dude, like, there's
One
one
thing
there. Okay, go ahead.
One thing I've got to give DE credit for, they really, really thought it through about integrating with co-op, right?
Mm-hmm.
They really made it viable so that when someone kills a thrall, everyone gets the murmur contribution. That was honestly a really good idea. Everyone can help fight the lich to bring it down so that the Lichy, I don't know, the person that has the lich has an opportunity to kill it. Like, honestly, I think the integration was really well executed, even though it's simplistic.
Yep.
That's the
They
important
could
thing.
they could have very well been like, well, your lich is not on Pluto and you're fighting on Pluto now, so no murmur for you. And that
Yeah.
would have killed co-op. No, they did that right. Coming back to the people that burn for it and that might be upset about it, because I think that that's another topic which you wanted to dive into, some of the general negative reactions and the stuff around that. One of the things that I want to jump in on just before we do that is the slightest bit of hypocrisy, which I am really surprised by every time I do hear that, is when you're talking about people that are upset with the lack of content when they burn for the entire system in a weekend, and then say like, oh, I don't like Warframe at all. It's like, yeah, I've been in a place where like if you have to like do content about a thing that like maybe you're doing something but you're not necessarily enjoying it, but when you're playing so many goddamn hours of a game to rush through all the content, because like we spent a really decent amount of hours during the weekend trying to get everything and still it took a long time. It's like, man, like, are you like, do you truly not like this? Like, is it really so bad? Because like honestly, if you spent like 20 hours on it in a day, I don't know, man, but yeah, that is.
It's like
It's weird.
I've got to be honest. Like before we did this, a part of this video is we are going to be talking about some of the reactions that some of the content creators have had. I've had a number brought to my attention. I've gone and found some, and I've had some thrust in my face.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel comfortable naming any names, but you may be able to work out who I'm referring to if you've seen the video. I mean no disrespect to anyone because I mean who am I to judge? I'm I'm nowhere near as successful as half these people. So, but just because um I'm not as successful doesn't mean I can't criticize like they're criticizing. So, one individual. Are you ready to start this now, or do you want
Yeah,
to hold off a bit?
sure. Let's go
Okay.
ahead.
So, one individual, I watched the video, and they started it saying that they had spent 12 hours solid streaming the content, and then they were going to review it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, this is the dumbest way to review something. You've got no script prepared. Your thoughts are incoherent. You're tired, right? You're rushing this out to get views. You haven't had time to digest the content, right? You can't tell me you have taken not only just the Kuva Lich system that we're talking about, but you're taking the whole of the patch, you're condensing it to 12 hours worth of playtime, and you're saying it's bad. Like you don't need to rush into these things.
Okay, let me make sure that um, one of the things which I would say as a criticism towards that is watch out that you're not generalizing on a small subsample of your um, empirical experience, because who knows whether those 12 hours were the best times in Warframe and you got crazy good RNG. Maybe those 12 hours were the worst times in Warframe and you got bad RNG. Maybe you killed 10 Kuva Liches. Maybe in that time you killed 1 Kuva Lich based on your play experience. Maybe you're tired and that influences how you view the game, whatever. Okay, so it's like, don't unnecessarily overgeneralize. I haven't seen these reviews necessarily, but I think we can talk about it because I think it's great to have some opposing views to like kind of play along with. But before we do that, I do want to make sure that we don't overgeneralize necessarily. I think that there is something to say for I would not go out and refuse something in that sense because number one, I don't do reviews, but if I were to do, I wouldn't think that because of the circumstances I mentioned before, I would have personally a full view upon it. However, is what we're doing the most optimal way at reviewing? Is that like a personal thing? I don't know. So I don't necessarily know whether I agree or disagree whether that's a great or bad method. But let's talk about some of the points that they raised and what they thought made it bad and what they thought made it good.
I'll be honest. When they brought up the video and put up a list of all, actually, I'm just going to point this out, right?
Mm-hmm.
For anyone listening, if you don't like how, if you don't like my opinion on anything, please feel free to challenge me on it, right? You will have the opportunity to change my opinion as much as anyone else. So, but I'm open to constructive criticism.
All right,
If you're just gonna, yeah,
one thing I do want to clear up then, because I'm seeing people react here that don't forget that partners do not have to farm the first set of Parasol mods and they can jump right in.
that's not true.
That's not true. I just want to make very clear. Partners do get the new warframes and the new weapons, but they do not get any of the Kuva
We had
Lich
nothing.
stuff towards
Yeah, we
that
had
progression.
Yeah,
So
we had nothing for the Kuva Lich stuff.
nope. But yeah,
We didn't even get told where to start.
nope. Because otherwise I would have known, but I did not, and I had to ask you, and thank God you knew. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, and that was just trial and error.
yeah, like seriously. So we do have on that note of on that tangent, we do have a video coming out by two of the best creators in the entire partner Warframe ecosystem. Can I just say, Drew? They were looking really good, these two. We do have a video coming up giving you some, hopefully going over the motions of how to do a Kuva Lich, but who knows if they'll be any good.
The whole point is that when you are trying to construct let's right, I want to deconstruct your video that you released yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Sure.
Not all of it was scripted,
No.
right? You had clearly scripted elements. You had a brilliant intro, which caught me completely off guard, right? You had a very clear and concise way of making it entertaining. How much footage did you record? And okay, how much of that episode was scripted and how much of it wasn't?
The only things that were scripted were the start of it. So like the green screen thing and the second green screen thing towards the middle, because I recorded for 1.5 hours and
Yeah.
I still had no clue how to get the Kuva Lich. And I was like, well, I'm on 1.5 hours, and most of the time, 1.5 hours equals about 15 minutes of like edited down footage. And I was like, well, this doesn't feel right. Let me message you and see whether you know anything. And then
Yeah.
you gave me some clues. I was like, okay, now I need to figure out how to get this back on track. So let me just do the same thing again because
Yeah.
fuck. And the rest is just all from the top of my head. But I like every video, like you do know where you want to go.
So you took an hour and a half's worth of content, you broke it down into approximately 12 minutes, and you've got a 3-minute buffer at the beginning and partway through to actually bring it all together.
Sort
Right?
of, yeah.
The whole point is you heavily edited your content to make it a viable video for people to enjoy and watch. And I do strongly recommend people to go check it out. I wasn't going to pimp it until I actually watched it for myself, and it damn well deserves views, right? But then you have other people, other content creators that take the lazy way, right? They will sit in front of a microphone for a solid 30 minutes, talk at the microphone, no scripted content whatsoever, and then push that video out, right?
How do you feel about the idea that a video like mine is not necessarily intended as a review? It's more like a fun experience. So like there were multiple times in which I had to redo missions and the Requiem relic thing. Like I cut all of that out. So there's a lot of like that space that I throw out, and like I don't really like to complain in the video. So like a lot of things which I thought were lacking, like I'll sum it up at the end, but I don't really like to dive into it because it's more an experience which I want to share. But if your intent is to inform people about what you feel about the game, and especially inform people on day one as to whether, because of Warframe's history, they should play it because it's a stable, fun version, or whether they should wait like a day or two because the game is very buggy and you're anticipating on things to be fixed, or you want to give your primary direct feedback, like your instant, like, oh, these are my first reactions to DE on the first like update. Wouldn't that hold a certain type of value within? Like, wouldn't that be the right place to do a video where it's like, okay, I've played this, I'm coming right hot live of like hours of playing this. This is what I feel right now, and you go take this and you go decide what you want to do with this, whether you want to play it now or whether you want to wait. This is what I feel right now, and maybe I'll come back and like structure it more later. But isn't there also like a place for that? Because I think it's a way different type of content than something that I do. And Yeah.
There is a place for it.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that when you don't edit your content and you are trying to present it in a manner which is a review,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you actually throw out terminology that is polar opposite, when you say things like, oh crap, what was the two terms? There was spontaneous and I can't remember. There was another term that this one video used, and they're polar opposites. So and it's just like, the D are both spontaneous and
Complacent.
that's exactly the word, right? They're both spontaneous and complacent. Like, how can you be spontaneous and complacent? That doesn't work. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, whatever. Hey, look, bees pies! Doesn't work, right? So if you are, and there are, I listen to the videos and I'm like, that's a mistake. You just gave the wrong number there. Do you not want to actually check your content before you publish it out? Now, I'm going to say I'm hypocritical, right? That's a massive hypocritical statement for me because I will pay people, right?
Mm-hmm.
I pay Michelle to edit down the FrameCast highlights. Sorry, I apologize. I should have asked if you're right for me to say that.
No problem. I mean,
Okay. Right. So I pay Michelle to edit down the FrameCast highlights because I don't have time to do it. Right.
mm-hmm.
And I have complete faith that in the quality of the work that he produces, sometimes I just won't even listen to it. I'll just render it out and put it out to YouTube. In some cases, that's really flattering because I don't actually have to, I feel I don't have to review his stuff before I release it. But in other instances, that's like, wow, that's super fucking lazy of you, Xeno. Like, yeah.
Okay, well, let me bring up a counterpoint here. We're not editing down this thing aside from the Framecast highlights, but right now this podcast is streamed live and the podcast is also being put out and made available in its entirety. And it's very well possible, and because I edit them down, I also know that it happens that in some cases we might bring up hypocritical statements or conflicting statements because you're on your line of thought and you're going about finding the right word, and maybe your few changes mid sentence because you come to a new revelation, which tends to happen.
Yeah.
And we don't do that, at least here, because I personally feel that the style of podcasting is really nice in order to get an experience and get an idea of what the thought process is that goes on within our heads. Like when we're having a discussion, the discussion can take us anywhere, and the conclusions where we get to can come from wherever, and it's really nice to follow on that process. I really like that, especially like when you go into Storytime with Xeno, which is, I know, one of the fan favorites, and I really enjoy it whenever we're talking about World of Warcraft. Even though I haven't played that, like I I feel I know a lot about it because I've been able to hear a lot of your stories about it. So it's an element of the type of content which appeals to a lot of people, and I also know of fellow content creators which don't necessarily feel that they want to edit as much because it's about their connection to their audiences. It's about them and having a raw experience and not having fancy editing in between, which could like blur the lines between them. And I can imagine that a rambling video is something which might work as well. Then again, if it's placed as this is a solid review and these are the facts and this is the way it is, maybe it's not necessarily the way it is. Maybe it's more of an opinion piece, but that depends on what they're claiming it is. And I'm also really interested in the points they're making because yeah, like what even if there are conflicting statements, what do they generally really dislike or really like?
I think there can be a lot of value in listening to people's raw opinions on things,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think that what we have here, what we have in 10 o'clock is great because you have two voices. You have two people that are bouncing thoughts against each other and they're able to actually excel forward. We had a point earlier in the episode today where we were like, I agree at thing. I also agree at thing. Crud, where do we go from here? Well, why not advance said thing? Why not make thing better? You know, there's an opportunity for the pair of us to work together to make a more concise, well constructed narrative to a video, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like we are desperately trying to do this sort of, but I feel that when you are an individual, you're working by yourself to do a video on your own, it is so much harder to do than just having someone there on the side to bounce conversation from. And I really feel just doing this between us, we are able to not bullshit, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't go around in circles saying the same damn thing over and over again. We are talking to one another, and I can cut you off as much as you can cut me off because we're having to listen. We are as much of the audience as we are the entertainer.
Mm-hmm. I definitely think that there is a real advantage in having the thing which we're having, where we have two minds that can come together to create something greater, or like not necessarily create something greater, but to come to a greater understanding. And that's also what I hope with everyone that either watches this live or listens to this outside as a recorded recording. That was a great word, but yeah, if like through there for your input, for you, or for your comments, for your ideas, we can come to a better understanding. And like I really appreciate that around this type of content. I do want to watch out though is that yes, this might be a better solution, but it's not something. Well, not solution. This might be a better alternative. That's not the right word, but something like that. We might have a better starting point where we can actually bounce off ideas, and whenever we get too derailed or too clouded in our judgment around our personal feelings towards something, when we're trying to be as objective as possible, I do want to watch out that we're talking about an advantage that we have each other, which not everyone else is, not everyone else has. And I don't think that if you do not have that advantage, you should not attempt to make content like this. I think that yes, it works better if you go over it.
Sorry,
Everything
can
works
I
better. Yeah, go ahead.
just to make sure you're not saying, you're saying if you don't have this setup, still try to make content.
Yes,
Yes?
I don't think that if you're all by yourself, you should be discouraged from trying to make reviews or trying to give your opinion on things. If you don't have like people around you that want to look over it, or if you don't have friends that you want to talk about, I think it's better if you have them. But if you don't have them, it shouldn't be the end of the world that like, okay, now I don't have it, I can never do it. I think it's fine because that's what YouTube and these platforms are for everyone to speak out and have their opinion.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. The reason why I interrupted you is because I was concerned that I wasn't sure if I heard a double negative. So I wasn't
Yeah.
quite sure if you just took, like, if you don't have this situation, don't try. No, which was
Mm-hmm.
not the case. It's fine.
Yeah. No. So, but
Apologies.
let's look more at like the things they said, and let's look less about like the way it was presented, um, because I'm interested in like the counterpoints that they're given. Why do
I
they think
think
things are bad?
I think some of the problem comes down to perception,
Mm-hmm.
right? A lot of the time when something like Warframe is actually no, let's not even limit it to Warframe. Let's broaden our scopes to everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? I am a web developer. When someone comes along to me and says, Drew, we want you to use this new technology in making this website. My gut reaction is to go, ugh, new technologies are bad. Right? They're never finished. They're always buggy. They're always glitchy. They're gonna break. And it makes me want to reject the notion of doing it. Right? But at the same time, I have to fight that urge and actually try it to learn something new. Because
Mm-hmm.
by learning something new, I become worth more as a developer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can ask for more money. More money means more Warframe. So, but likewise, if you are a content creator and your content is tied into one game, I'm going to use Riker for Diablo 3. He's a brilliant example. Diablo 3 slowly went on a decline and eventually had no more content being supplied to it. The poor guy had to go, well, where am I supposed to derive my content from? And he expanded out, right? The game wasn't going anywhere, and his only option was to expand out. Now, I know some content creators have a bit of a issue with Warframe's deployments, with Warframe's updates, that I think it leaves a bit of a sour taste in their mouth, a bit of a bitter pill in their mouth. And that can often skew their opinions of their reviews and heavily influence what they say. And yes, they mean it, but maybe they mean it for the wrong reasons.
That could very well be. I do notice that over the last few days, my opinion on Warframe has very much changed. And that doesn't necessarily have to do with the update itself. My enjoyment of Warframe has been a lot less since the past year. And that hasn't necessarily been for the reasons that I explained it was, which was for the lack of difficulty or the lack of content or the repetition. And honestly, like one of the main reasons why I wasn't enjoying Warframe as much outside of streaming it or making videos in which I was doing it in a social setting was because I had some personal issues with Warframe. And those were entirely my own. And over the last week, I've been able to come to terms with some of them. I've been able to look back upon some of them and talk about some of them. And it made me take a different look at the game, and maybe that influences me being pretty excited and happy about this update now. I do think that you will never be able to take the subject out of a subjective review because a review is not objective, and that's something where I want to say it is very well possible that a certain amount of circumstances make people look at things differently and maybe more harshly or more kindly, because it also goes in the other direction where we're now talking mainly like about a creator that's been long time within this game, that's grown like maybe some more negative views upon the game because of the place where they're in. But I've also seen the direct opposite of creators that have just joined the game and that will get furious if you even attempt to criticize the game, which would remark an overly positive influence. But that aside, because I think that it's really tough to talk and criticize and think about reviews and their quality and the way that they should be done because they're very subjective. And we cannot say that whether someone likes or dislikes something so much or even more, you can't really say that, oh yeah, that you can't really do that because that's because you're tired. It's like, well, that's their choice and it's their opinion on it. I do think that one of the things which was brought up in chat and I've seen floating around as a valid one of the criticisms that they brought forward, and I might think it might be a valid one, is that even though we enjoy this, when it comes to a different type of player, maybe a more casual one, there might be some problems with this with this update. There might be some negative elements to this update where these reviews might apply to. Let me point out that on the first day, I spent playing about 2 hours on Warframe. Then on Saturday we did another 4 together doing the relics. Then on Sunday we did another 4 or 5 on the murmurs. And then today we played from 1 and I was done at 4, which was about also 4 hours, for 3 to 4 hours. So that together amounts to, I think, between the 12 and 15 hours of only getting to your very first Kuva Lich attempt. Not even killing it, just the very first attempt. And that is without anything else in the game going on. So if you're not as available or free in your time, this might be a system where you would like to get towards the Kuva Lich, but you can only be rewarded when you're 2 weeks into this game, and 2 weeks after that you might only be able to like figure out your first Lich because you can only play 6 hours a week. So I think that maybe the RNG gating, in the sense of you need to go through a lot of motions before you can like fight your Kuva Lich for the very first time, is something which could be a very valid thing. What do you think about that?
No, I think it is a valid thing. Like, why must we have content? Look, what was it? There was people complaining about the whole syndicate gating of content for Fortuna. Like, it was even in the PC Gamer reviews, like, oh, but we just want to play it. We don't want to be time gated. Like, so in effect, what Blizzard, what DE have done is they have time gated the content, but down to when you're available to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which is certainly a better way of doing it than just saying, oh, you can only get 3 thralls a day. You know, it's a better way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with killing a lich at this pace, right? Be it this quickly or this slowly. I've heard, what was it? Tactical Potato killed his first lich within 24 hours. And my response is like, holy crap, where's the fire? Why are you going so damn fast? Like, you know, just take your damn time. And I get it from a content creator's point of view. You have to be able to give an informed opinion. I was watching another review earlier, and literally they were giving reviews of how the system was working, and they had barely any experience of I think they got a larveling and a few of the relics. They hadn't cracked open any of the relics, they hadn't fought their lich yet, they hadn't done any of the thralls. And it's like, how can you give an opinion on a system that you have not experienced? How can you give a well-structured opinion on a system you haven't experienced?
Well, if we want to get technical in how you can, is you turn on a camera like this and you speak whatever's on your mind. And most of the time, that's the way that these people do it. And I know that sounds like a smart remark, trying to be smart and like, oh, how can they do this? Well, they just turn on the camera and they speak. To which I want to say, they're just people in the sense of I think that the relevance of the amount of people that watch your content, or even whether you create content at all, the amount of people that you influence does not necessarily, or in my opinion at all, value or determine the value of your opinion. So I kind of want to explore, because we've been on the content creator point quite a bit, and I can understand to a certain degree that if people are looking for opinions, that you want things to be well structured, but at the same time there is no actual editorial obligation to give a well structured review or give a well structured opinion. People can just say whatever they want on their own channels, because why wouldn't they be able to say what the hell they want, and why would we even care? And then that's the thing that I want to explore a little bit. Why is it important that we don't have people going over, or why do you consider it as important that people don't go over their review process so fast that they might not be able to give a well structured, opinionated piece?
So this goes back years.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a lot younger, when I was a wee little lad, and we didn't have such a thing as the internet, and we wanted to learn about video games, we would have to buy magazines called PC Zone. So there was
Yeah.
a UK-based publication called PC Zone, and it would both review and preview games to come.
Mm-hmm.
It would also have CDs, which later became DVDs with patches and things on, because literally people did not have an internet connection fast enough to actually download content from the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember an MP3, a 3 megabyte MP3 would take 20 minutes. Youch,
Yeah.
right? So when you would read these articles and things, these reviews of video games, it was important to realize which ones were opinion based and which ones were fact based, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not everyone is going to have the same opinion of the same game,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, fact, Warframe is free to play. Opinion, Warframe is good. Fact, Warframe is updated regularly. Opinion, well, maybe not
Yeah.
regularly, but opinion, Warframe's updates are immense. Fact, what's called Digital Extremes dev stream their upcoming content. Opinion, Digital Extremes is freaking amazing, right? And when you're actually able to identify reviews that actually give you both fact and opinion, you're
Mm-hmm.
golden. But there were so many, oh god, magazines that were just giving you opinions. I
Mm-hmm.
remember when I was not, this is only going back a few years. I would read the anime magazine Neo.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Neo? I think it was Neo. The their reviews were 100% opinion based, right? So if someone was reviewing, say, Sailor Moon, but they were into Gundam, right?
Mm-hmm.
They would slate Sailor Moon, something chronic, because it's not a giant mech show. It's not even giant, it's not a mobile suit show.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a giant robot show. Like, so if you don't have the facts with the opinions, then all your review can be boiled down to is just satire, where you are ridiculing a piece of work that someone else has done for your own gain.
All right. I think that we can find maybe a little bit of a middle ground between what you're saying and where I think that these creators are coming from and the people that support, or not support, but that are looking for this type of content, are looking for. I think that the middle ground resides in that Warframe is a free to play game, but free to play games are not necessarily free. What a free to play game wants from you is your time, your investment of your time, and maybe investment in some microtransactions, but most importantly, your engagement, your playing of the game. That is what Warframe is measured by. Not the amount of sales, but how many players are playing it consecutively. That is what's very important for games like Warframe, Path of Exile, Fortnite, any of these games. So it is not for you an easy thing if you're short on time, just as it's not for you an easy thing when you're short on money, to dive into a game for 12 hours or 24 hours and then get to a Kuva Lich and then figure out, like, nah, this was a horrible experience. I didn't like it from start to end. I wish I'd never started, because you're never going to get the time back. Just as you can buy a game, but if you're short on money and you really didn't like it, you're never going to get that money back if you don't resell it. So someone coming out and giving their opinion, even whether it's not like truly fact-checked or entirely annotated, just gives them an impression of, should I dive into it? Should I invest all these hours into it? Should I wait? What do they say? Or maybe they just like the person and they're just like, oh, I just like to hear this person talk and I really care. But let's just go with the audience that wants to just get a clue as like, what do they say? And I think that in general in YouTube, especially on like this field of like uneditorial or like not corporate editorials, because everyone does their own editorial, but it's not that that you have magazines where people would come forward and actually like have editors go over or I forget the right word, but there would be a redactor going over at the end of the thing to make sure that it was up to standard of the quality of the magazine or the not quality of the magazine to ensure that the name and the brand was kept in high regard. Not all of the YouTubers have that because not all of the YouTubers decide that they are their own brand. Not all of the Twitch streamers are their own brand. Some do, some don't. But you're free to do that. So I think that to that regard, having a, no matter how factual correct, just having a look into what you want to do or what this thing is can be very, very helpful to people. However, I can really see what you're saying because I've seen many videos come around, especially around Warframe, but also around various different topics. Basically, any topic you can think of on YouTube, there will be a video like this, where people will try to criticize something based on pure hard facts. Now, I'm putting that between annotations because most of these facts aren't necessarily facts. Quotations. They aren't necessarily facts. Because let me take, for example, the reason why I wanted to start the FrameCast, why we got started on the FrameCast, which was the, I think it was, for me personally, the Arcwing thing, the It's All Blink nerf. When they were telling that they wanted to nerf the It's All Blink. And I thought that was a stupid idea because you should not nerf something just because it's good at something. And the It's All is just good at speed, so it's fine. And upon first review, that might be, oh yeah, that's fine. But if you go deeper, you'll figure out there's a lot more to it. And there's a lot more about, well, maybe Arcwings shouldn't be on the planes. Maybe they should. Maybe there should be a difference in the categories between Arcwings and K-Drives. And if there isn't, maybe that's more of the issue than just this symptom of this one Arcwing being used because it's fast. So there's a lot more to it, and especially when it comes to opinionated pieces around certain things that are going on behind the scenes within Warframe, a lot of the things are very one-sided and are used to support one's own opinion because it's very easy to look up arguments or figure out facts, quotation marks, that will support you, and it's very easy to overlook facts that don't support you. And that's why I really want to have this back and forth, where if I bring something up, you might be able to come around and say, well, hey, well, you're overlooking this thing. Have you taken that into account? So I personally feel that it adds a lot more value and weight to an opinion when I know that people go over it and actually try to take their own opinion down in the piece that they're bringing it forward to. So I think that might be the middle ground, though I'm not quite sure.
I think also one thing to take into consideration is the fact that this system is brand new, right? DE are synonymously known for making quick alterations to things that come in. I remember the cost assist, which I think I'm getting the right weapon. Don't sue me if I'm not. It's the infested site. It had a thrown effect or an alt fire effect or something where it would just eat through armor or it did insane amounts of slash damage. I'm not sure, right? All I remember is that there were content creators that actually publicly told the audience, hey, by the way, this weapon is OP as fuck because you can do this cool alt fire thing. And then all of a sudden, DE went, oh, fix that. It's no longer an exploit. Have fun with that. And like there were a number of content creators that turned around. It was charge attack. That was it, charge attack. There were a number of content creators that turned around and said, like, D, you've just ruined my video. How could you do this to me? Well, just go release another video, right? So you've got people here that are reviewing it saying, the liches only have 8 weapons, and they require 50 kills per murmur. Well, like, it's been a few days, and already they've reduced the number of kills, thrall kills you need by 40%, or it's like down to 40% for the first 2 murmurs. And it's just like, so, you know, that argument in your review is instantly invalid, right? So, you know, take down the video and do another one.
Okay, allow me to try and see if I can find what I think a concern of yours is, and then let me know whether I'm right or whether I'm mistaken. But personally, I think that when it comes to YouTubers or creators in general giving up their opinions, I don't necessarily care all that much, because after all, they're just other individuals with other opinions, and whether people agree with those opinions or disagree with those opinions, the world still turns, and it doesn't change much. Unless, and this I think is part of your concern, we're talking about the Warframe responsiveness and the Warframe adaptation of certain popular opinions, or certain opinions being put out there. Like you said, when the Colossus was reviewed, there was something found which could be exploited, and they changed it. But something you've also said last week was that you were worried when it came to the Kuva Lich system or to the Railjack system, that when it launches and people don't understand it, they might bring out negative reviews which are unwarranted if their facts on which they base their opinions are questionable. That once these reviews come out, people might not play it enough for Digital Extremes to continue on development, or Digital Extremes might abandon it because it's not good, and they're like, people don't like it, we're not going to continue on with this, even though the system itself might have had some really great benefits, but they were just overlooked because people were trying to rush out opinion pieces. Am I right in that might be part of your concern around these reviews?
It is part of my concern, but to take it that extra step, that extra jigsaw piece to complete my concern, is the fact that no matter how much we like it, we are influencers. Our words impact the opinions of other people, right? It's like that for reviewers. People that do reviews of video games, people like SkillUp, who reviewed Warframe, people like Markiplier, who played Warframe. Those are influencers, much like the content creators that are loyal to Warframe and play a hell of a lot. Their negative influence can have a detrimental effect to people that are loyal to the word of that influencer. That's why, like, I really hope that what we do here is we don't necessarily say, old blood is good. You believe old blood is good. Old blood is good. You know, we don't want to force that on our audience. We want to strive our audience to make their own opinion and to talk to us about their opinion. That's what I would like to think we are trying to do.
Yeah.
But so that is the last jigsaw piece of my problem.
I do want to ask you a question, which for me is an important one. You're pointing out quite rightly that a negative review could have a severe impact upon a game and the players and the people loyal to that game, because of things being overlooked and like an unrightly negative opinion and negative effect, which could have been prevented if there would have been more time spent on it. And you say that that's an undesirable thing, and it would be better if that didn't happen. Am I right? Am I wrong in that?
Sorry, say that again.
So what you said was that a negative review from an influencer or a negative opinion piece from an influencer can have a negative effect upon a game and the people that are loyal to that game. And when that negative review and negative opinion is being given on a rush term or not under an ideal circumstance reviewed situation, then that would be an unfortunate situation, which in an ideal world you would not like to see happen.
Yeah, that is literally the nail hitting the hammer on. No, wait, hitting the nail on the head.
Okay, so my question now is, would you say that it's the exact same problem with an overly positive review?
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Like it's why I don't understand why people are super excited for Diablo 4. It's why I don't understand why people are well, I don't even know people are super excited for Overwatch 2. It's like, oh, it's gonna be so good. You've seen nothing, right? Diablo 4, all you've seen is a Diablo 3 reskin, right? What's super exciting about that? Yeah? Like, oh, but Diablo 3 was good. Yes, but you're just going to sell me Diablo 3 again for a marked up value.
I mean,
why?
Activision has a history with that. They just did that with Modern Warfare. But
exactly, right? So if you've got people that are hyping up things because, yeah, so as you put it, right, people giving the same positive influence, the same positive influence for too quick of a snap judgment, yes, that also makes me panic.
All right. I just wanted to make sure on that because I wanted to be clear whether this was about, I don't like there being these unwarranted negative reviews about this game, which I like, or whether it was, I just don't I just don't
Snap judgment
yeah,
reviews.
I don't want snipe because, like, let's say that everyone would have been positive right now, way too positive right now, would we be having the same conversation? And if we're trying to do this right, we would have done that the same way. Because
I've got to actually thank you for actually bringing up the whole what about positive snap judgment reviews. And I don't like it when game publishers hold back on review copies of their game just before the game's due to go out. So, like, you don't see the review until after the game's come out or just before the pre-order window is going to close. I really heavily dislike that. If you want me to review your game, right, like, so I've taken to no longer pre-ordering games until the day before it's going to be released, right, if I'm going to pre-order it at all.
yeah, I'm very against pre-ordering because I've had some really bad experiences. But yeah, wait until the final day. That would be a great recommendation. I see here a counterpoint, an interesting point being brought up in the chat, where isn't having the negative reviews also a good thing where it will create an impulse for the developer to improve their product and show that they listen? How do you feel about that?
So there was something that a developer for Magic the Gathering, I use the term developer, like, card designer or whatever. He turned around and said, you can do a lot with 8 or 9s out of 10, and you can do a lot of with a 2 or a 3 out of 10. You can't do anything with a 7 out of 10. If something is just okay, what can you do? If something is overly problematic, you can react to it, right? Loads of people saying that Arkwing needed to have 6 degrees of freedom. I was in that camp. I was in that marching band saying Arkwing needed 6 degrees of freedom. Do you know what they did? Because so many people were complaining about it, they actually implemented 6 degrees of freedom. And then there was a new camp saying, no, 6 degrees of freedom is bad. It's making me want to throw up and things like that. So they put in a toggle, right? The point is that they had a lot of people giving a strong opinion, a similar opinion across the same one thing. But beyond that, no one can agree what can make Arkwing better, right? And that is what is holding Arcwing's development back. I feel a 3D radar would actually make Arcwing's development better, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
like, if anyone's played Zone of the Enders, there's like a ring that goes around. Oh, should I? I've got Jehety up there. Basically, you've got, imagine your Warframe,
Mm-hmm.
and there will be a ring around the Warframe for each enemy that is in your vicinity, and the ring would have an arrow on it and it would point to the enemy,
Mm-hmm.
right? That would be something that they could do, because then you'll know in the three-dimensional space where the damn enemy is, because the 2D map isn't going to do jack shit,
No,
right?
it doesn't. It doesn't. I want to add a little thing to the point of, well, can't negative reviews serve as great points of improvement for a developer? And I think that there needs to be an important asterisk for um, great source of improvement. That's only when I feel it's a well structured, well thought out review. Because you could say we're using review, but you can interchange review with opinion, because I feel that in this sense, especially when we're talking on the creator side of things, I don't want to exclude, when we're saying creators, any size of creators. And once we do that, it's just any people. So a review, people are like, and like everyone isn't necessarily given a magazine review, so they could also just be given their opinion, which is what all reviews do. They give their opinion. So you can interchange in this discussion review with opinion, and I'm doing that all the time right now. I'm just catching myself, so don't worry if I've said these different things. But anyway, I think that when it comes to a um, well-structured opinion, you can definitely go ahead and use that as a way of improvement. So when Drew comes forward and says this 2D map is really horrible for playing Arcwing, because I've played these kinds of games where there is 3D space, and we have used a system like this. And you can see that it works. And you can see that the difference between this game and you can see the difference between this game, that even though the experience is similar in like the way that the things are set up, the way that you play it is so different and so much more negative with the 2D version, that a 3D thing, in my opinion, would be better. That's something you could work with, because he points out he points out certain facts, and he puts them side by side, and then gives his opinion on what he thinks is better and why. And you can agree with it, you can disagree with it, but you have some facts to back it up. Another opinion could be Arcwing sucks. It is bad. You should fix it. You can't do anything with that.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the Kuva Liches are bad because I can't find them. An example for me, when I was 1 hour and 30 minutes into my initial playthrough, I hadn't found a single Kuva Lich. I could have said that the Kuva Lich update was really awful, because they're nowhere to be found, and they're horrible, and there's nothing there. And it could have been kind of true, because that's the way I experienced it. But that was just because I hadn't run over there's tile sets that I had to run over to in order to find it. So as long as an opinion is structured with some facts given to it that makes sense, and it's being presented in a way that makes sense, you can use it. If it's all over the place, you can't really use it.
See, the really interesting thing you've just pointed out, right?
Mm-hmm.
In your first video, again, shameless plugging of that video, it is actually a really fun, entertaining video. You didn't know where to go
Mm-hmm.
for the better part of an hour and a half, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yet you have said time and time again that this has been one of the most enjoyable experiences in Warframe.
Mm-hmm.
And you've said absolute shocking integration from, starting into the patch, but you've had so much fun with it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
So if you didn't do your research, maybe your videos could have been exactly the same as the other people that are saying, oh, it's a bad update, it's lazy, it's complacent, it's spontaneous. Like, really, I still don't understand how it's spontaneous and complacent, right? But having a good think about your experience, being able to reflect on your experience, gives you the opportunity to give a good, informed opinion on the content.
Yeah. I mean, my goal is more to entertain and give a review. So for me, I wasn't happy with where it stood. And I can't judge that for other creators as to where they think they're happy with their content and where they think they're not happy with their content. But yeah, I think that I am really touchy when it comes to criticizing other creators' workflow because I know that I work in my own way and I like that way for my own personal reasons, and my general stance is if you do not like my style of content, you can watch something else. I'm totally fine with it. There's a lot of content out there. I think that the important thing towards this, which I think we brought up before, is that um, a too quick a attitude. No, that's not the right word. Trying to do things too quick could not just mean that you might be mistaken, but it might also mean that um, something that it might have negative consequences for more people outside of just you, and that's something which might be concerning, especially because you and me too, we're part of a group of people that appreciate this game, and if it were to suffer negative consequences, we wouldn't necessarily appreciate that.
No, I completely agree. Right. I think I have said all I want to say with regards to oh I think oh damn it. I think I've said all I'm gonna say on other people's reviews and
Mm.
things. Should we go back to the actual content update itself? Let's talk about our opinions on that, where we think there's room for improvement, so on and so forth.
Yes, please. There's this one thing. There is this one guy that's just like a big, balding toy collector out here, and he's just been saying that he loves this update so much, but he hasn't tried Grendel yet, and I just cannot appreciate that. I don't know who it is, but if you see him, no, how do you like it?
To be honest, like with the very little time I've had to actually play, I've focused on the liches and I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I think that there were some serious teething problems. I think it's very interesting how watching other players play for the first time, how they tend to just rush things. Like, oh, I've got to get my lich. Oh, I've got to get my lich. Oh, I need my lich. Oh, I need to get my lich. Oh, lich. You know, like when I first started, we played like 30 minutes after launch. I was getting footage for 10 o'clock. It was hilarious. And we were playing. God, no, it wasn't Adara. It was the survival on Sedna, and we did 30 minutes, and we didn't find a single lich or larvling. We didn't find a single larvling, and we are like, okay, it's been 30 minutes. Let's come out, you know. And loads of people were like, oh, let's try this. Oh, let's try that. Oh, let's try. I was like, no, take our time because the information is going to come to us. And lo and behold, one of the people I was playing with, apparently their clanny worked out that a Daro on Sedna was a good place to get the larvalings. And that's why we went to a Daro.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you know, it's the integration to new players is lackluster. It is weak.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have to give credit to DE that as soon as you learn a system, that tutorial on how to get into the system becomes useless. Right? It's super difficult. You know, why build a tutorial? Because tutorials are really hard to produce, right? I know that for a fact. But why produce a tutorial when you can have the opportunity for content creators, like on YouTube and things, to create tutorials for you? And then it's up to the content creator if they wish to maintain it. And I think this, in part, influences people to get their videos out as fast as possible.
All right. I think that to that point, why would you make creator tutorials if you could also have creators make your tutorials? Is that we are all individual entities. Warframe is an individual entity from my channel and from your channel. And if they have to rely their $1 million game upon other individual entities that aren't on their payroll, just random creators out there to create tutorials for their game, that wouldn't necessarily be an ideal structure which I would want to have in my game. I don't think that that would be complete. And at the same time, even if that would be what you'd want, from the 50 million players, or maybe it's even more now, that we have, only a very small percentage actually goes out of the game to go watch videos about it. I do it with Warframe because I've been around with Warframe, and I watch people because I know people here in Warframe and watch their content. But if I play a game of, let's say, Fortnite, I'm not gonna watch Fortnite YouTubers. If I'm gonna play Modern Warfare or whatever, if I were to ever, I'm not gonna go watch videos in order to figure out how that game works because I expect that to be within the game. And I think that you're right that the tutorials that Warframe gives right now, that piece of text you get, isn't great. But I think that you don't need a handheld tutorial. You just need to have your handler, Ortis, to handle you. To say, after the cinematic, go here and experience this. And after you got your Kuva Lich, be like, oh, hey, go to this point of the map. And there you find a thrall. And the moment you find your first thrall, you know what a thrall is. And you see what a murmur is. Like, oh, this makes sense. I get this. Or maybe you do it a couple of times and you get it. Or sometimes you might have to ask someone for help. But if you just read the text, you have no idea. I had no idea what a thrall or a murmur or anything was. I was just sitting there like, all right, something rather. And you're right, an entire tutorial into like how to mod and like put this mod there, put that mod there, that would get old really fast because you would find better ways. So you don't need your hand held along the way, you just need like pointers. It's like, go there, try that, feel this, feel that. And I think that that would work better and that would make a game more complete and be more desirable than just relying on tutorials of videos.
Yeah, I agree. I would like it to be that one thing, right? I would like it to be fully integrated into the game, but I can appreciate why DE do it this way.
I can appreciate some of the things they do. The fact that you're not necessarily like bound to like do this, do that, and like fill up your entire mod space like this. But
Yeah.
when it comes to, let's say, the Parison, I think that that is bad. That is really bad. And I've made this argument with the Plains of Eidolon, is that this is something which isn't necessarily going to be fed back towards Warframe. This is one of my main concerns. These things are never going to get fed back to Warframe, and this is why I emphasize them on my videos. Even though people might say, watch the dev streams, you'll know. Read the patch notes, you'll know. It's like, yeah, I can, but I won't, because I think this is a very important point, is that if you create a game, or you create a scenario, repeated scenario, where every time when you update, things are being added to the game without an explanation. And I don't need an explanation in the sense of why did it take so many years for this Warframe to come up. It's like, yeah, right, characters get out in the game, that's fine. But when you have a way of doing it with a second dream, where you have a mechanic that was never there and all of a sudden it's here because of like some lore, or we had it with we had Forced Prize at a moment where we never had Lissettes and all of a sudden we had them, and then when you logged in you did Forced Prize and then it made sense that you had a Lissette. If we had that before, But now it's just like, boom, Plains of Eidolon is here. It was never here before, but all of a sudden it's here, and it's just here. It's like, if things can just appear and disappear on just this, then what is there to say for any value within the universe if you're trying to be invested in the universe? If anything in your universe can just disappear and appear at like the snap of the finger without any explanation, why should you care about anything? Because everything can just be gone or be there. And
I think one of the biggest issues that a lot of people have is change, right? Why is something happening? Like, I remember this is this is my advocacy for why I'm better than most people. Sorry, apologies. Like, I remember I was playing Oberon way before his update, way before, and like, you know, I wasn't allowed to play Nova because people were getting fed up of me just having footage of Molecular Prime, and I wasn't allowed to play Loki because people were too scared of my Switch teleporting skills. So I was just pretty much playing Oberon, and I was happy with how he was, but like, he wasn't he was a jack of all trades and he was crap at all of it, right? But then he got an update and he became so much tankier, his survivability shot through the roof. And I was happy with it. Some people complained about it, saying like, you know, oh, it's awful, it's awful. Like, I've had Lars turn to me and say like, oh, if they change something on your Warframe, you'll hate it. And I think one thing I like to strive for is that I try to accept whatever DE are doing. They are trying to do it for the betterment of the game, right?
I can see that. However, I want to interrupt because yes, whenever Warframe is reworked or when something is nerfed, it's for the betterment of the game, and that's fine. But Warframe is not a small game anymore. If Warframe were to change the mod system from a talent tree to a mod system, because after their first couple of months with it, they didn't like it, and it's just like, we're just a starting game, and oh, let's just change it. That's fine, because you need to make your game viable. We're now 6 years in, and you have players, 50 million players that have already started playing your game. Even though it's in beta, it's not really in beta, and you gotta treat it as a game that people already have experienced and will experience. Of course, we know this is gonna update, but if you're gonna change something as fundamentally as adding an entirely new weapon category, a Parasol, or adding an entire open world, and not making a valid note of that within the game as to why it's here, even if it's just like the way that they did with the Lisette in Force Prize, that you have like a new player quest and you just like play through that so that it makes sense. It's like, it's a bad thing. You can do that at the start, but like right now, Warframe isn't a small game anymore, and I don't think that it is like desirable to have a situation like this. And I wanted to add on that why this is one of my main concerns and why I'm kind of petty about this, maybe to a fold, is that the people that will speak up about this are watching the dev streams and are watching the patch notes and reading it. And like, people that will give feedback are already involved, so they will know when a Parasol or a Plains of Eidolon or anything is coming up, so they won't have these issues. The people that will run into this is the majority of the player base that will never give feedback because they're not into going outside the game. And I don't think these things, in order to understand them, like the ghouls as well, they required you when they were introduced into the game to be aware of what was going on outside the game, but most people aren't. And Warframe's got to recognize that. But as long as people don't give their feedback, because the people that aren't involved outside the game are also not involved in the feedback process, this is something which I feel is really important, but is constantly overlooked. And in this time was as well.
Poll time, good sir. Right. I don't want to just limit it to Parazons. Do Parazons, Liches, and was there anything else in? No, just Parazons / Kuva Liches need tutorials in Warframe? right?
Would you be fine to change that to introductions?
Sure. Yeah, fine.
Alright.
I'm with that. I'm of the opinion that the Parazon doesn't need to be introduced, because when you first encounter it, it's like, oh, cool, I'm now stabbing a thing in the thing. Okay, cool. The mini game is still exactly the same. I'm still hacking the same way. And yeah, I there's no huge fundamental difference to me about this Parazon being implemented into the game.
I think it is, because it's all of a sudden there like, it's an entirely new category, it's an entirely new item that you're holding, which you haven't had before, and there's not even a description about what it is. Like, it's not like you can equip it and it says this is an item used to enhance hacking into terminals. There's nothing here. There's nothing that you can find out about it unless you go back to the dev streams. And like, I think that is a bit of a problem. Like, I don't need an entire introduction explaining the entire thing, but if it's just like, oh hey, like, they could have integrated it with the Kuva Liches, or just done like a random thing where its orders is like, operator, I found a tool or whatever. Like, the way that they would introduce it in Force Price, where it's like, operator, we also have this tool which is called the Parasol. If you just mention it in one line, it's like, okay, that's it. But yeah.
Just looking at the results of the poll.
Mm-hmm.
And surprisingly close.
It is.
Yeah. Cool. Right. Yeah.
I do want to ask to the people that voted no, it doesn't need an introduction. Do you watch the dev streams, and were you aware? And if you do, were you aware of any of these things before they came into the game?
Just because they do or do not watch the dev streams, I don't think is an influence on their opinion.
It might be, because when, like, let me give you an example of the ghouls in Warframe, which is one of my petty pet peeves, which I will admit, but I will hold on to it, because when the ghouls were introduced in Warframe, they had been featured on dev streams for a long time, and they were described as these creatures, as these Grenier that were being tested on, that had this backstory within a comic, and that were then, were given a background which people that were watching dev streams or were keeping up with the Warframe social media or reading the comics were aware of. Then they were introduced to the game. And the way they were introduced to the game was by a verified inbox message of the Lotus saying, Tenno, ghouls have popped up in Cetus. And it was like, when I saw that, I knew what it meant because I was watching the dev streams. It was like, okay, the ghouls are here. But then I started thinking, if I don't watch the dev streams, and I've been playing this game for 4 years in a row, and I haven't watched the dev streams, all of a sudden there's this thing. It's like, why is this here? And how much harder would it have been for them to say, Tenno, as the very first message, Tenno, there is new activity in Cetus. Something appears to have popped up. Go checking with Khonsu. And then Khonsu says they appear to be ghouls, and if you slay them, you may learn more about them. Because there is lore in the game, but it's just boom, all of a sudden there. And things don't necessarily appear, boom, all of a sudden there. And even if they do, I don't think it's desirable. But yeah.
I'm fine with boom. Suddenly things are there. Honestly. Like the whole parkour 2.0. Like, boom, it's there.
I'm not.
Right. I obviously it's a matter of opinion. And honestly, because regardless of the fact that the majority had was yes, even if you guys were on like 25% yes, I would have still said they would need an introduction then, because there's still a large minority of people wanting to have a tutorial.
I don't like. I'm not talking about a full-fledged tutorial.
Sorry, introduction.
Like, even if it's just one single line, just acknowledging the fact that there's something different, like, that makes a world of difference for me, because I think that it is important to acknowledge that something has changed instead of being like, oh no, it's always been there. Ugh, what are you talking about? No, it's always been there, you silly. It's like, no, just own up to the fact that there's something new. Just own up to it. And like we've seen them do it in many different things. And I give the Second Dream as a great example because I thought that was an amazing thing the way they did it. Because they could have also just turned around and said, oh no, this other person? Oh, that was always there. You just didn't know. No, it was always there. What are you talking about, silly? It was always there. It's like either you have this scenario where you have to like fake expect saying like, oh, it was always there, or you can just make it a part of the game. And I think that is better than doing it otherwise.
Right. I think we should now take to. I don't think we have anything else to say. I think we're running out of steam. We had a very, very productive hour and a half, and so let's take to questions.
Yep.
From our audience. Let's see what people have to ask of us. You can ask us anything. If you're going to ask me yet again, what color are my socks? The answer is I'm still not wearing any socks. If you want to call me a hobbit, you may call me a hobbit. I already saw that in chat earlier.
Yeah. How many toys have you collected this week?
None.
Aw. All right.
Why aren't you wearing any socks? Because I don't like wearing socks. How many liches did you kill so far? One.
Mm-hmm.
How many of you have you killed? You haven't killed yours yet.
I've only done my first attempt. So,
how? Okay, so I think that's White Wing. How would you improve Old Blood?
So far, as I said, I would add an introduction in the sense of after the cinematic, or that says, Tenno, we've heard some disturbing signals or some disturbing communications from the Grenier. Go on Setna and see if you can find something, and then you do the mission. Nothing else is different. You just find that Kuva thing, and then it's like, well, or this says, oh, that looks tough. I would definitely not check out the place where there's influence, and because then you get everything. And maybe have a way that you can get to your first attempt faster, so that you can have like that satisfaction of, oh hey, I played for 3 hours and I already had my very first attempt at the Kuva Lich, and then it's like the normal length, so that you can at least be like, hey, I played for a bit and I already got a Kuva Lich, instead of having to farm everything. But aside from that, that's a minor complaint. I like it.
I think I would do the whole death thing, but for something fresh and original. In probably about 4 months' time after this has been out, I would introduce new Requiem mods, and I'd probably introduce a new scale of Lich. So if the Lich gets beyond rank 5, you then require 4 Requiem mods.
Interesting.
Right. Omega weapon. If you were a hobbit, would you rather be Sam or Frodo? Why can't I be Merry and Pippin? They know where all the food's at.
Yeah, please give me second breakfast, for God's sake. Blame J asks, you guys think that if the E can take the route of Dark Souls and implement the lore of the game in weapons in a more deliberate way, could they do that?
I didn't even know there was lore in the weapons for Dark Souls.
Right. I think they do that in the codex entries already pretty well. I think codex entries are fine. I think you need to make a big difference. And codex entries are amazing for a more detailed understanding of the world. It's not for common understanding. You can't expect people to dig for all the codex entry to know things that you want them to know. If you want them to know something, shove it in their face.
I think, though, that there is I think really we should go back to the Samaris way of learning stuff, because that was a really good way of getting lore snippets about the Warframe universe, right? I can't read that person's name, but someone asks, also, are those Guyver models I spot back there? Yes. No, ignoring the socks thing.
Why is Hydra Deluxe the best known skin in the known universe?
Aztec Pirate.
Because they've been working on amazing skin to feature an amazing Prime trailer. I wouldn't expect anything different.
Right. So Omran asks, thoughts on the no mods, no operator Grendel missions. I'm interested to give it a go, just not had any time.
No, same. Same. I haven't had any time yet. Is the Old Blood a step in the right direction for Warframe? What do you think?
Yes.
I think it's a good step in keeping people busy, especially. It felt nice. Actually, a question for you, Xeno. Now that we're on too many questions, what do you think of BlizzCon?
Like, seriously, like they screwed that up so badly. Maybe we'll talk about that next week. I don't know.
Let us know in the chat or in the comments or wherever, via Twitter, via Patreon messages, whether you want us to talk about BlizzCon next week. We didn't really have time for that today. Nvidia asks, do you still think DE will be able to keep up their schedule of releasing Railjack and New War this year?
New War, yes. Railjack, no.
It's gonna be tight.
No, I think they'll keep to New War this year.
Mm.
I'll be really upset if they don't. But Railjack, I think they'll just go, nope, push it to the side.
Yep.
Right. I think that's it for this week. If you've enjoyed this video, either of them, please click on the like button or the subscribe button or the bell button. In fact, actually just click on all of them. Unless you're all those things, then don't click on them. You get the point. If you like this and you actually want to contribute during the live recordings, please come to twitch.tv/Michel Postma and come see us live on Tuesday at 7 p.m. UK time, 8 p.m.
European time, and
Thank you, 2 p.m. Eastern American time. They did actually just have their clocks change.
They did.
And yeah, if you like what you see, please consider contributing. Go to patreon.com/Michel Postma and donate what you can, because it helps him do this cool content that were linked in the actual chat earlier in the stream. And yeah, I'm not doing mine.
Check out patreon.com/Xenogelion. And actually, if you're watching this on YouTube, one thing, also for the people watching this anywhere else or listening to this anywhere else, if you want to support people on YouTube, one thing that you can really well do is at the end of a video, click on any of the other videos that are suggested of that channel, because that really helps the channel in being better in the algorithm. Just rewatch a video or watch a video you haven't seen already, because that helps. Anyway, that's like all the plugs things. I just want to say thank you so much for watching and listening. I really appreciate it every week. Everyone coming out. I hope we entertained you for a good 2 hours almost. And I can't wait to see you all next week.